Okay. Everybody, this is we have so many collaboration with Professor Salami, Dr. Salami, during National Education Strategy project when where we were in the National Education Policy Commission. We have old friend Dr. Wen Ao, Dr. Delwin from NEBC, and one of the colleague from Dr. Miyadana. She is joining from Japan. And then we have new colleague from the educational sector, Professor Salami. So before his talk, allow me to read his biography, small biography, short biography. Dr. Jamil Salmi, a Moroccan education economist, is a global tertiary education expert, providing policy advice to government, universities, professional association, and development agency. With 34 years of experience working in more than 105 countries around the world. So he is an excellent, well-known tertiary education expert. Until January 2012, he was a World Bank tertiary education coordinator. Dr. Salmi is Emeritus Professor of Higher Education Policy at Diego Portal University in Chile and Research Fellow at Boston College Center for Higher Education in US. In 2009, Dr. Salmi wrote The Challenge of Creating World-Class Universities and The Road to Academic Excellence in 2011. His 2017 book focused on tertiary education and the Sustainable Development Goals. In 2020, he wrote a report on the impact of COVID on higher education through the equity lens for the Luminate Foundation. In 2023, he edited Transforming Lives, a book that documents innovative equity promotion initiative at the institutional level across the world. His latest book, co-edited with Phil Elbach and Maria Yudevich and published by the MIT Press, US, is entitled Academic Star Wars, Excellent Initiative in Global Prosperity. Thank you so much, Dr. Salami. The topic for his going to present tonight is preparing students for the post-pandemic world of work. Floor is yours, Dr. Salami. Thank you. Yes. Unmute, please. Unmute, please. Yes, yes.
Thank you very much for your kind invitation. It's a great honor to join my friends from Myanmar again. And I will share my presentation to support the lecture.
Yes, we see it. Yeah. Yes.
As you know, universities are among the world's oldest institutions. They've been around for more than 1,000 years, and they have not changed very much. They've been very stable for almost 1,000 years, until 2020, until COVID-19 forced most universities in the world, about 25,000 of them, to brutally close down their campuses and switch to online teaching and learning. So this has been a tremendous change for the thousands and thousands of professors and the millions of students all over the world. This is perhaps the biggest transformation that universities have faced in the past 1,000 years. And because the pandemic was so painful, not only from a health viewpoint, but also for daily life because of confinements and economic hardship. when it finally receded, it's not over everywhere yet, but by and large, its situation is much better. And for most of us, our main aspiration has been to forget about these 3-4 years of difficulty, of crisis, and to move back to our old life. To move back to the normal life as we thought it was before. But the question before us is, can it ever be the same after the transformation that higher education has experienced? And it's not only higher education, because around us, the world has been moving and changing very fast. And so to answer this question, I have divided my presentation into 3 parts. I would like to talk first about the evolving labor markets, and then about the education innovations that are needed if universities want to stay relevant and align with this changing labor market. And I will finish with one key change that is coming, and it's about lifelong learning. In 2016, at the World Economic Forum in Davos in Switzerland, a report was released announcing the 4th industrial revolution. And that has very much to do with the transformation of our society and economy in the digital age. With the arrival of these intelligent machines, which are having a tremendous impact on the job market. So what is happening in the labor markets as a result of the digital transition? The main impact of the 4th industrial revolution is that we see not only advanced technologies, but a combination of them in new disciplinary or multidisciplinary areas that didn't exist before. And also in bringing together the physical world, the biological world, and the digital domains in unprecedented ways. So very soon we might see robots with a human face and human skin. And you may think that it is science fiction, but it is very close. And increasingly humans are using implants to overcome various diseases or genetic defects or birth problems, challenges. I have tried in these graphs in the tables, I'm going to show, it's a big table, so I split it between 2 slides, and I understand that the organizers will be sharing my PowerPoint for everyone to keep, so you don't have to make notes right now because it's a crowded screen. So just to give you an example of the disciplines that are being combined as a result of this merging of traditionally separate disciplines into new areas. So the most discussed recently these days is artificial intelligence and machine learning. And that's a combination of computer science, cognitive sciences, mathematics, and statistics. And I will not read them all for you. When you get the presentation, you can do it, but just a few examples. Internet of Things, that brings together computer science, data analytics, electronics, and telecommunications. Robotics, combining computer science, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering. And you can see that computer science is present almost everywhere. If I move down, quantum computing, combining computer science, mathematics, and physics. Additive manufacturing for 3D and now 4D printing, computer-aided design, engineering, material science, and manufacturing. Biotechnology, bioinformatics, biomedical engineering, which themselves combine biology, computer science, engineering, and medicine. Or I finish with the last example of smart cities, computer science, environmental science, engineering, and urban planning. So what is happening on the labor market? The first thing we have to recognize is that many traditional jobs are disappearing quickly. A few years back, two professors from Oxford University did a big study and identified 700 professions that has just gone. And if you think about how life has evolved in the past few years, you can, I'm sure, identify some of them yourself. Parking attendant, bank teller. I don't remember when is the last time I walked into a bank, because I get my cash from an ATM machine and I do all my transactions online. But second, at the same time as jobs are disappearing, and there is always this fear that robots and intelligent machines are going to replace human beings, well, the picture is not as bleak, because new jobs are being created as a result of the digital transition. Here is a list of a few jobs that didn't exist 10 years ago. And now if you go on LinkedIn and look at job offers, you will see that they are the majority. App developer. 10 years ago, we didn't know what was app. Social media manager. YouTube content creator. Digital risk manager. Smart city urban planner. Smart building architect. Driverless car engineer. Cloud computing specialist. Big data analyst. Sustainability manager. Drone operator. You know, drones would be like small toys for weekend pleasure, but now they serve the not only the defense industry, but for very positive purposes in commerce, in agriculture, in health, delivery of drugs, etc. And not only are we witnessing the emergence of new jobs, but many existing jobs are going to change. If you remember some of the examples I've just mentioned, we think about the architect. The architect will now need to design houses that are smart, as I mentioned, which means that they will have a lot of technology included. Sensors, electrical wiring, electronics, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, etc. That will change a lot. And the problem is that most countries are behind in the preparation of people with the right digital skills. A survey from the UK recently said that more than a fifth, between a fifth and a fourth of the population are lacking basic digital skills. And the situation is much worse in sub-Saharan Africa, where only 1% of university graduates have been found to have basic coding skills. Just here, another list of fast-changing professions. So it means existing professions, they're not going to disappear. but the content of what the people have to do is going to change drastically. Advertising people, pharmacists, insurance, environmental engineers, actuaries, finance, etc. And that will, of course, impact how universities are shaped, what programs they have, how they teach, how they organize, how they use technology. And in fact, we see in an unequal distribution, because some universities are much more advanced, others are still teaching in the same way. But what we see is 4 dimensions of possible innovation. First, in terms of the content, new programs are appearing, which means that the courses are changing. Second, we see increasingly innovative pedagogical practices in the way professors teach, in the way students learn. And of course, because of the digital revolution, we are able to use new technologies in innovative ways. And last but not least, evaluation modalities have to change to follow the innovation that I have just mentioned. And I will go now into more detail explaining each one of these. So first, the impact of the digital revolution. Here, I'm showing you the type of new programs that need to train. The first half of the table shows you at the undergraduate level, in polytechnics, in institutes of technology, in community colleges, or even in colleges and universities where they deliver bachelor degrees. Traditional bachelor's degrees in mathematics, science, and engineering, for example, will have to include programming, cloud computing, network management, web development, search engine optimization, AI, big data coding, cybersecurity. You know, several universities have had to close their doors recently because they were the victims of cyber attacks and they had to pay so much money that they got bankrupt as a result. Augmented and virtual reality, digital entrepreneurship, Internet of Things, mobile app development are some of the new programs appearing. And then at the advanced level, the postgraduate level, where you train people for masters and doctorates in applied science, applied mathematics, engineering, technology, we find similar areas: big data technology, data science, computational science engineering, electrical and electronic engineering, computer science and engineering. And I'm just giving you a few examples. But so far, I've mentioned only the digital transition. But our planet, all our countries, are also experiencing at the same time the green transition, because climate change is affecting all of us. As was mentioned in the kind introduction that Dr. Mio made, I have had the privilege of working in many countries across the world, and I still travel frequently for my work. And everywhere I go, in Asia, in the Middle East, in Africa, in Europe, in Latin America, people tell me, the weather is crazy. It's never been so hot. It's never rained so much. It's never been so dry. So we are affected by the green transition as an effort by societies to adjust, to adapt to climate change. And that means, again, many new jobs. So on this framework that I have developed, I have tried to capture the contribution of universities to the green economy. And there are two hats. One is the education, training, and capacity building hat. And the other one on the right is the knowledge generation and transfer for innovation, research, engagement with the economy. So let me focus on the left side because we're talking about students in this presentation. Everybody in our societies need to know the basics about climate change. And because there are still many people who deny that there is climate change, but it's very hard, I believe, to deny it because we experience it every day. So the education system as a whole, and universities in particular, needs to offer general education about the environment to everyone. Scientific understanding of environmental issues and solutions, ethical dimensions of environment. Then we have to prepare the professionals who will work in the new jobs that can be called green jobs. So you need to offer technical skills and competencies for these new jobs. Reskilling for the changing jobs. Medical doctors and nurses, for example, are faced with new diseases that are linked to climate change that didn't exist before. Today in Europe, I was last week in Spain, and the average temperature every day where I was 38 degrees Celsius. 10 years ago, if it were to reach 30 degrees, it was considered very hot. You have places in the Middle East where they're reaching now 45, 50 in India. And as a result, many people are dying, sadly, but other people are just getting sick with new diseases that are directly related to climate change. So the curriculum of the medical professions have to change to follow this pattern. The training of agricultural or engineers, and Dr. Mio is an expert in that respect. He would be able to give much better examples than I can. I will not try to do that, but people need to be trained differently. And we need also to offer lifelong pathways, and I will come back to that. And if you look at the green line at the bottom, universities need to show the way. They need to become green, resilient, and inclusive campuses. What's more is that it's not digital transition on one side and green transition on the other side. There is a lot of intersection between the two. And new programs need to be put in place, and they have started to appear in some countries, in some universities, that will be at the intersection. There will be multidisciplinary programs addressing both, or preparing for both digital jobs and green jobs. And I've tried to give you just a few examples here. So on top, we see the big areas, so it's training in engineering and technology, in the basic sciences, but also in operational management and in regulation and monitoring. So these are more on the social science side. So just a few examples here. So data analytics and AI will be important for environmental data analysis, for big data, for climate modeling, ecological modeling, biodiversity informatics, bioinformatics for green biotechnology, in the use of our IoT, Internet of Things, and sensor technologies, This will be very important for the regulation and monitoring for the environment, to monitor carbon emissions, geospatial analysis, spatial analysis, to set up sustainable transformation system, to model it. These are just a few examples of a study that. And it's not only the green economy, it gets even more complicated. For those countries that have a seashore, we're talking also about the blue economy, the transition from traditional economy to the digital economy, the green economy, the blue economy. And I will not read this complicated table, but it just gives you a few examples of how the blue economy is developing. And I don't have the time to do it today, but we could also look at the intersection between the blue economy and the digital economy. But the blue economy has to do with fisheries and aquaculture, marine biology, marine resource extraction, renewable energy using tides and wind, carbon sequestration, conservation and sustainable management, marine spatial planning, shipping and maritime transport, and tourism also to be eco-friendly. So here we have the intersection of the green economy and the blue economy. And each time you have to think, what does it mean in terms of new programs, of all programs that have to be adapted, and perhaps all programs that should be eliminated. Let me use just one example, not too far from you. In Singapore, Singapore is defined as one of the smart cities in the world. If you traveled recently to Singapore, you may have noticed that your taxi didn't have a driver to take you to your hotel. So Singapore, in terms of use of new technologies, has 4 priorities. Food, it's an island that needs to import most of its food. So whatever they can produce, they want to focus on it if they can do it locally. Drugs, because people are getting older, there are new diseases, so that's a priority. Digital technology, that goes without saying. And they are obsessed with, and they're the leader in the world in terms of the circular economy, which means all the recycling that needs to take place instead of wasting precious resources. So just a few examples that it translates into a move towards urban farming and digitized farming to reduce the inputs that are needed and to get higher productivity within the confines of the island. Look at the kind of fields that they have now. It's all technology, use of sensors, not using earth, new approaches to agricultural farming, just as an example. But when we think about the new skills and the competencies that universities need to give, the report that I mentioned in 2016-17 by the World Economic Forum, looking at the future of jobs, try to show us, and this framework here on the graph captures that, what are 21st century skills. So you have the complex competencies, so we have transversal competencies. In addition to the technical content in the various disciplines and multidisciplinary areas, everybody needs to have also these generic competencies that are so important for today's world, starting with critical thinking and problem solving. I'm not going through foundational literacy on the left, because that's what happens in primary and secondary education, but focusing on university level. So critical thinking and problem solving, and I'm going to come back to that. Creativity, communication, collaboration. As I travel to new countries, I always like to visit universities, but also to talk to employers. And I always ask them, are you happy with the universities in your city, in your region? And believe me, most often I get the same answer. They tell me, oh yeah, these universities, these institutes, they are good for the technical content. But their graduates, they don't know how to work because they don't know how to solve problems. They are not very creative. They don't know to communicate in writing, orally, and they don't know to work in teams. And it's not only these competencies that help you to address complex problems, but there are also the socio-economic, the socio-emotional skills, which they called in that report character qualities. How we behave, the values we hold vis-a-vis our environment. And these are also very important to learn and to operate in our complex societies and evolving labor market. And these qualities are curiosity, that gives you the motivation, the sense of initiative, that will also give you entrepreneurship skills, persistence. When we look at Mr. Gates, Bill Gates, one of the richest person on the thing, oh, we say, what a genius. But what we should know when you study the biography of these people is that they failed so many times before finding success. And when you fail, there is a risk that you get discouraged, that you give up. So persistent, what the Americans call grit, the ability to get up again and to learn from your bad experience to do it better and to fail again. And that's how you become successful. Adaptability, that goes without saying. With so many changes, we need to adapt. Leadership skills, very important. Social and cultural awareness, differences among people within one country. Across countries, increasingly, we work with international colleagues, with cultural differences. And so we have to learn to respect, to understand, and to work together. So I would like to illustrate the importance of these skills with one personal example, if you allow me. That is, I have 3 children. The first 2 have been very successful university graduates. I was very proud of them. And Karim, the youngest one, has been very difficult, very challenging, because in high school, he was not interested at all about his studies. And at the end of high school, he barely graduated. And then he went to university because I pushed him. Because he didn't have good grades in high school, he didn't get to choose the program he wanted to study. And after 6 months, he dropped out. He gave up. And can you imagine the trauma for me? I have dedicated my entire life to higher education, and my own son is a failure. But then something happened. He came to me and said, Dad, I need to borrow $250 from you. I said, what for? Oh, I'm going to set up my own company. I said, what? Yeah, I have this idea. I will go to people's house to repair their computers. I told him, but you don't know anything. I mean, he's like all kids who was spending hours and days playing these stupid video games on the computer. He knows to use a computer, but he has not studied it. I said, okay, because I'm a weak father, I gave him $250. He registered his company. We printed some flyers we put them in the mailbox of the neighbors, and I I distributed them also to some colleagues of mine at the World Bank at that time. And then surprisingly, he got one call to go and repair, and a second one, and a third one, and he came with lots of $20 bills. I was so surprised. And I asked him, son, aren't you scared to go? This is real life. This is no video game. You go to a person, and what if you don't know how to repair their computer? And then his response gave me food for thought, because he said, but dad, how else do you want me to learn? So somehow, I don't know if it's through these video games where he was a tribe leader in World of Warcraft, whether he learned the skills of curiosity, of leadership, of knowing where to find information, learning from experience, but he was very successful. So I wanted to share this story to tell you how these social emotional qualities are equally important to be successful in life. And in fact, after a few years, he got bored with his company and he decided, he was curious, he learned programming on his own. And then when he thought he was ready, he started sending his resume to his CV to companies without a degree, without a university education. And all of a sudden he was hired. And you know what? His first salary was higher than the salary of his older sister, who has a PhD from a renowned UK university and is an academic. Go figure. The important thing about learning today is that it should not continue to be a spectator sport. When I was a young student, the professor was like God in the classroom. And I was watching and writing carefully everything that came out of the professor's mouth. But today's young people, as happened with my son, they are bored with this kind of education. Learning is not a spectator sport. So the three principles that we need to adopt are the following ones. It should be fun. Learning must be enjoyable and stimulating. Neuroscience tells us that when our brain is stimulated, when we are experiencing a pleasurable activity, then we learn much better. When our kids are playing video games, they are having fun. So much fun that they could play for hours and hours without interruption. Are they having the same fun in school? Second principle, learning must be experiential. It must be meaningful. It must be related to real life, to the world of work, to society. In that way, they will learn, they will be excited. And it has to be flexible. It must always stay relevant because the world is changing so fast. So how do we achieve this? We need to move from an old education system which was centered around the professor, us. We have the knowledge. We are the big bosses. And we share that knowledge generously with our students. No, now teaching and learning must be centered on the students. And here is the title of a book, recent book that is really worth reading, which is called Sparking Curiosity, Igniting Passion, Unleashing Genius. And I'm going to share with you a short video, 2 minutes, to illustrate how to change something that can be boring into something that is very enjoyable and stimulating. It takes place in a metro station in Stockholm, the capital city of Sweden. And I believe I need to make an adjustment because you couldn't hear the sound, right? I forgot to when I shared, so I'm going to stop sharing and click on the sound so that you can hear it. My apologies for this mistake.
We can hear your sound.
Oh, you could?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
so let me
please go ahead.
share again. Oh, yes, it was. Okay, sorry about that. So here it goes again. So this is about changing the culture of teaching and learning to make it fun, to make it stimulating. But first, the innovation has to do with the curriculum, with the content. I mentioned that it has to be experiential. So there are many ways of doing that. Some universities have cooperative programs where students alternate between classes at the university and working in a company, which is more than a traditional internship, which is part of their learning experience. And they are supervised by someone from the company and one of their professors at the same time. Some universities do service learning, working on projects for the communities, and that's part of the learning experience. Some universities use simulations to put the students in a real life experience. Some use role playing. There are many ways of doing it. Programs have to become multidisciplinary because in life, the way we solve problems today is using professionals from several disciplines. Remember what happened during COVID. Because of the vaccine skeptics, the main challenges for many governments, I don't know what the experience was in Myanmar, but in many countries, and you have seen the disaster in the US, where so many people were against vaccines. So medical research did fantastic work, and after just 1 year, we had effective vaccines, but the big problem was that people didn't want to take them. So how do you convince? It has to do with psychology, with education, with communication. It was not a medical problem anymore. It was a public health problem to convince people. So many universities have transformed themselves. Amsterdam University in Holland has the University College, which is a combination of humanity and science to prepare young people for the way societies operate today. In Australia, University of Queensland School of Chemistry transformed itself into a school of chemistry and molecular biosciences. One of the most innovative university is Western Governors University in the US. It was created in 1997, and it was the first ever online university, fully competency-based, and students learn at their own speed. Everything is online, as I mentioned. Internationalization is also very important for today's curriculum because we don't prepare graduates only for the city in which university is located, but for the entire country, sometimes for the entire regional, like Southeast Asia in your case, and or the entire planet. Second level, innovative pedagogical approaches. It's not anymore the professor who teaches the students who is passive. We use now peer learning, where students learn from the other students as much as they learn from the professor, either through the flipped classroom where the professor doesn't teach, the students learn on their own, and then when they come to a session, the professor gives them an exercise as a team to see if they have understood the course content and if they are able to use it to solve problems. Another professor could use clickers, asking questions very frequently, and the results are shown on the screen immediately to find out whether students are learning or not. Many universities are using now project and design-based learning. Some of the leaders are Maastricht University in the Netherlands, Aalborg in Denmark, and I will speak a little bit later about Olin College of Engineering in the US. I've already mentioned simulations, serious games, video games that are not about fun, but are about real life situations to put, so it's fun for the students, but at the same time, it's experiential. And of course, self-learning programs using artificial intelligence, where the students learn on their own. So I just mentioned this very innovative School of Engineering located 15 miles south of Boston, Massachusetts in the US. They are called Olin College of Engineering. They were created 15 years ago, and they are unique in the world, at least according to me. What makes them unique? All the learning is design-based. They don't learn mathematics 101, physics 101, chemistry, or no. They have a problem to resolve, and to resolve it, the professor guides them to know which textbooks they have to study, parts of the textbooks, and then they have to use their knowledge to solve the problems. And usually these are multidisciplinary problems. And all the learning is done as members of teams of students, group of students. They don't have academic departments because they don't want to have the traditional silos of disciplines. They want people. I witnessed a class last time I visited them, and the topic was, what can we learn from the way animals move? So they were looking at birds flying and fishes swimming. And it was about mechanical movements, dynamics, aerodynamics, the biology of animals, and combining all of this to understand what is happening in nature and how it can be applied to new technologies that are designed by human beings. They integrate, and you can imagine a triangle where engineering is the basis, but one of the other side is entrepreneurship, and the third one is humanities, because values are very important for them. They want to instill social responsibility. They want their engineers to be people who will solve the 21st century problems to make the world better. And they rely on what they call the expiry principle. What does it mean? That they will never teach the same course the same way the next year, because at the end, they will always make an assessment. What went well? What do we need to change? what did the students have difficulty to learn, what has changed in companies that we need to incorporate. So they're constantly rewriting, redesigning their curriculum. And I took these pictures during my last visit, and you can see how dynamic the energy that comes out of this university. And you can also notice a very unusual thing for an engineering school is that they have half and half girls and boys. Whereas in the US, the average for the whole country is 22% female students in engineering. I don't know how it is in Myanmar, but in most countries that I know, there is always a majority of male because girls see engineering as a male profession. They don't feel that they are qualified for that. Those who go there don't feel welcome, but at All-In, it's very different. So I've talked about content, curriculum, about pedagogical innovation. The third innovation is that we can use new technologies to enhance the education experience using computers and the internet, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality, collaborative online platforms, 3D printing, big data, blockchain. Let me share a few pictures to illustrate. I took this picture at MIT where they practice the flipped classroom. See, this is not the setup of a traditional classroom. They all work in groups and they just solve problems when they are in class together because they have studied the textbooks by themselves online before coming to class. So you can feel I should have shot a short video to show you the dynamics going on. And the professor doesn't teach anymore. The professor is a guide, is a mentor. It's a totally different approach. This is a smart classroom in Singapore, I believe. So the floor is smart, the table is smart, the wall is smart, so they can write and it will be transcribed onto the computer. This is a medical robot. I took this picture at University of Arizona in the US. And this robot, which was manufactured by a Norwegian company, her name is Maria, and she feels and she speaks. So if you give her an injection, for example, and you do a good job, it doesn't hurt, she will tell you in a very sweet voice how great you were in doing the injection. But if you didn't do it properly and it hurt, she will tell you using words that I don't dare repeat in front of such a distinguished audience to tell you how bad your work was. This is a simulation of a court of justice for law students. Instead of just reading books and learning them and memorizing them, they practice the law using real cases or fictitious cases to get into the real world of the law. And of course, artificial intelligence is going to change completely the way we teach and learn. Here is a teaching assistant. It's a robot using artificial intelligence and answering questions from the students, guiding the students as a traditional professor would have done. This is the librarian at one of the US universities, I believe University of Oklahoma. I mean, basically, you will consult online and the robot will guide you where to find the information you are looking for. This is at Monterey Tech Institute of Technology in Monterey, the Institute of Technology in Monterey, Mexico. And they jokingly say that they are the MIT of Mexico. And then they add, 20 years from now, MIT will introduce itself as the Monterey Technology Institute of the US. And here you have a professor using a hologram. They have campuses throughout Mexico. So the one professor can teach or interact with the students live, being present in several classrooms, several cities through the hologram, and being able to interact live with the students. I mentioned virtual reality. University of Victoria in New Zealand has decided to use virtual reality as its main teaching and learning platform. So in all disciplines, the students use that to have real life experiences. So it's not only engineering. If you look at the list here, architecture, art history, of course, computer science, design, engineering, film, professionals, information services, tourism, they all learn through this digital platform with virtual reality. And even the production of your degree. Now universities do not use paper anymore, but they use blockchain technology to give you a digital degree which cannot be fraudulent, which cannot be cheated. So increasingly, you use that in Australia. There is a company that has a platform, an online platform, where universities can provide the grades and the degrees of the students, and employer can verify and consult them. So it's very important to carry around your degrees, but also to avoid fraud, which unfortunately is still prevalent in many countries in the world. Now, the big challenges, and you have perhaps experienced it at the beginning of the pandemic. As Professor Mew mentioned at the beginning, I did a study on the impact of the pandemic on universities. And so I did many online interviews with professors throughout the world. And I remember this professor from a prestigious Canadian university, McGill, who started our conversation by saying, "Professor, I have to confess something. I am a digital dinosaur." And the challenge is that many of the professors are not very conversant, are not very comfortable with using all these new technologies, while our students are a different species. They were born and grew up as digital literates. And so we have a big gap between the professors and the students. And that's one of the challenges, to be able to implement, to apply this advanced technology which can enhance the education experience. But the last aspect of innovation, which is often forgotten, is assessment. I've gone to so many universities where were doing great things with the curriculum, changing it, or with the pedagogical method, but the exams, the assessment, the evaluation of the students' learning was still very traditional. So we need to have what I call the golden triangle, where we have full alignment among the curriculum content, the pedagogy, and the assessment, and of course, an appropriate use of technology. And we still are very traditional when it comes to assessment. I took this picture in Afghanistan. This is the national university entrance examination everywhere. And we think that's by after administering a 3-hour examination, this is the best way of selecting students to go to university. I'm not so sure. And then we are obsessed with cheating. So we have these exams and we are watching to make sure the students are not copying one from the other, are not talking to each other. This is what I call low-tech ways of preventing cheating. This is a picture from the Philippines. And here we have high-tech. During the pandemic, one of the top private universities in Turkey, bought to each of its students a mirror. You can see the mirror on the right-hand side, the bottom right-hand side, so that during the exams, they can watch how the student is doing, what they are doing with their screen, to make sure that they're not going to explore the internet. Now I ask you, in real life, are we going to still work as individuals or work as teams? Are we allowed to use the internet in real life or not? When I go to my doctor for my annual checkup, he's constantly looking at the internet because there are so many new drugs, and he needs or she needs to make sure that there is no incompatibility between this drug and the other. These are millions of bits of information. They cannot keep up with it, with so many new medicaments, drugs produced. So in many areas where technology is changing so fast, we are allowed to use the internet. Not only we are allowed, but we should use it, right? Very carefully. So assessment must be completely different. We should focus on the results, on the acquisition of competencies, not how many hours the students has studied, how many weeks, how many years. Focusing on not only cognitive and technical skills, but the complex competencies I have talked about earlier, and the social-emotional competencies. We should move away from summative evaluation, one exam at the end of the year to assess everything that was learned during that year. That doesn't make sense. It should be constant evaluation. And today, with artificial intelligence, there are software and platforms that allow professors to get immediate feedback. Is the student learning well? Which area is not understood? And to make adaptation, to adapt their course to respond to the needs of students. And students can have an e-portfolio with all the activities and the assessment of the activities they have done. And the last point when we think now about assessment is ChatGPT. In November, a year and almost 2 years ago, appears ChatGPT. And the immediate reaction of some universities, even prestigious ones like Oxford, I say, forbidden. This is totally a no, no, no. But can you prevent it? Can you forbid it? There is no good software to detect whether a student has used ChatGPT or not. So we have to be careful. First, there are so many new platforms using generative AI. Everybody talks about ChatGPT, but I personally use 4 different platforms these days to enhance my work, not to write my presentation or my articles or my books on my behalf, but to provide information. But then we need to be careful about the ethics of using ChatGPT or the similar programs. In the same way as when we quote a book or an article or an interview or a survey results, when we write an academic article or a book, we should acknowledge that I use ChatGPT in this way, it should become part of the way we work. And the assessment, we have to make sure that it's not ChatGPT that did the exam on behalf of the students. So critical thinking has never been as important as today. Because first of all, when you use these platforms or this software, you need to ask questions in an intelligent way. Because if you ask a stupid question, you're going to get a stupid answer. So knowing how to ask questions to get the knowledge that you're after. Identifying false information, mistakes, incomplete, biased information. People talk about the hallucinations of ChatGPT. There are many examples of mistakes, fake news, incomplete information, etc. So that's why critical thinking is important. And now the professors are faced with a big challenge of fostering deep learning rather than allowing the students just to do plagiarism. And in fact, ChatGPT can do, if you ask the right question or other Perplexity or other, they can do a decent job. They can summarize the documents. They can propose some ideas for research. It has many users. But I think the most important point is the critical thinking is so important in the way we are going to prepare our students for this work. And so that they can interact intelligently with artificial intelligence. So the new education model Before, the professor used to transfer her or his knowledge. Today, professor and students construct knowledge together. Before, the students had just to follow instructions for the professor. Now they must follow their passion so that they will be good learners. Before, we learned just in the classroom. Now we learn 24 hours a day, 7 days a week if we want to. Before, we learned as an individual. Today we learn in teams. I have run out of time. Unfortunately, I'm sorry I extended myself too much, but so I'm going to go very quickly to the last part because I want to leave enough space for questions and answers and the dialogue with all of you participants. But I just want to make the point that, today our world has changed. We are living longer lives because of the progress of medicine, which means that our learning should not be like before. On the left, we have the traditional model. We go to university, do a bachelor's degree, and for many people, that's it. They go to work. Some of them come back and do a master's. But basically, after that, we are going to work for 35 years without updating our knowledge? Not possible. Lifelong learning is a necessity. It's not a luxury. And unfortunately, many universities are still focused on the traditional students, high school graduates. No, we need, and on the right, we see that's the way universities should operate, offering a basic education at the start, then the student goes and works a few years, come back to finish the first degree, then do a second degree, and then go to work, and then come back to refresh the knowledge, etc., etc. It's really, that's what lifelong learning is about. Because today, we can learn, and the beauty to facilitate lifelong learning is that we can learn whenever we want, if we have a good internet connection, wherever you want, it doesn't matter. And we've seen that during the pandemic, and today's event is a great example because I'm in Colombia, South America. Most of you are in Myanmar, but I hear there is somebody in Japan and maybe somewhere else. And we can all work together, learn from each other through the internet, if we have good internet. Universities will have to change. This is the traditional shape. I'm sure most of the universities you work at have this shape. The large majority of your students are undergrads, and then you have a proportion, small or larger, of postgrads. My prediction for the future is that universities will have the shape of a star, where the traditional students, undergrads, graduate students, will be only a minority. Most importantly will be continuing professional development for working adults and career change studies for people who want to move on to another career. And of course, this will be either online, on campus, hybrid mode, etc. So we have new ways of combining courses and classes from various institutions towards a single degree. We need to have bridges across institutions within the same city, within the same country, across countries. And we have the appearance, the emergence of micro-credentials and nano courses for which you get a certificate or a badge. And also some countries, universities are offering mini masters that's much faster and cover less material than a traditional master's. What are micro-credentials? Short programs that can be from just a few hours to a few weeks that focus on some specific competencies that you acquire, which can be technical, transversal, social, emotional. It can be face-to-face or online or hybrid or flex mode. And the big challenge for university is that how do you integrate the traditional courses and the micro-credentials in a stackable way so that they all count together towards the award of a degree. And Korea has a very interesting experience with what they call the credit university, the credit bank. And it's not about money, even though it's called a bank. not about lending money, it's called credit, it's about academic credit. It's a Ministry of Education department, and you can go to there and show all the various training experiences, learning experiences, which can be at the university, on the job, on your own, can be a MOOC, and they will validate that into a regular official degree. And here we see the degree ceremony at the end of the year, presided by the Minister of Education. In conclusion, 12 years ago, the president of Stanford University, Professor Hennessy, made a big speech saying, sounding the alarm, a tsunami is coming, watch out. And even though he was speaking in California, next to the Pacific Ocean, he was not talking about a physical tsunami, but about universities in the digital era. And not many people paid attention to him until COVID came. And we all were overwhelmed by this digital tsunami. Now, as we emerge from the pandemic, many people, as I mentioned earlier, just wanted to go back to the old ways of doing things. And I tried to capture, using this cartoon, the resistance of people who don't want to change their old ways, even though there is this marvelous invention, the wheel, that could make their life much easier. The future, ladies and gentlemen, is already here, and we have to be prepared. And it's a VUCA future. You may have heard this expression, which was coined by political scientists at the end of the Cold War between the Soviet Union and the West. Today's world, not only politically, but health-wise, economically, socially, is much more volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And your challenge as universities is to prepare students to be successful in such a difficult context. And of course, we have all these new technologies that could help us, but we have to be very careful how we use them. It's not the technology, it's what you do with it. And sometimes less sophisticated technology might be more effective and useful and relevant than totally advanced technology. So we have to be very careful about it. And we have to do what Olin College of Engineering does, work in beta mode. What does it mean? You know, it's just like your cellular phone that you have to update the operating system or your computer every other week because there is a change. There is a new version, right? And you have to learn a few things because of these changes. We have to accept that we live in continuous change and adaptation. The US writer Mark Twain has a very funny way to describe our attitude. He said, I love progress. It is change that I cannot stand. That's the big challenge, especially for university professors. We are set in our ways. We don't really like to change. We need to have an open mind to embrace innovation. And we need to be humble. Accept that we're going to learn by doing and learn by making mistakes and learn from our mistakes. I finish by evoking a story from my country of origin in Morocco to illustrate how competition in the learning society is challenging. In my country, we used to have this gracious animal called a gazelle. But the gazelle had a terrible life because every morning it would wake up thinking, today, once again, I need to run faster than the fastest lion if I don't want to be eaten up alive. Now I ask you, do you think life is easier for the lion I'm not so sure, because every morning the lion wakes up thinking, today, once again, I need to run faster than the slowest gazelle if I don't want to starve by the end of the day. What is the moral of the little story? It doesn't make a difference whether you are a gazelle or a lion. You have to run. Doesn't make a difference whether you are a small university or a big university, a poor university or a rich university. You cannot afford to stay put, to be set with your old ways of doing things. Because believe me, universities next door in China, in Chile, in Finland, they are changing fast. Now, you could complain to me that I'm describing a very cruel world to you, and I apologize for that. But that's our real world, and we cannot be left behind. Education is the future. And the beauty of our world of higher education is that we have a long tradition of collaboration and cooperation. And I always say that the best way to compete is to work together. So I will leave you with this question. What is your vision to transform the way you prepare students for the 21st century? Remembering these wise words from the Roman philosopher who told us more than 2,000 years ago that there is no favorable wind for those who don't know where they are going. Over to you, Professor Mio.
Thank you very much. Very nice presentation and very informative. We have got a lot of experience. Okay, everybody, including our professor from India, Japan, or whatever, you are welcome to raise your hand and then make it a question or discussion, please. Yeah. Okay. First question is from Mr. Kimauso, please. Yes.
Thank you very much. I am very delighted, and I feel honor and pleasure to join this very informative and very inspiring lecture. Honestly, I have gained a lot of insight and a lot of takeaway from the brilliant professors. And I have one question. This related with my country position. The professor rightly pointed out that the best way to learn is through team. What I'm trying to say is that I have a simple thinking that the collective legitimacy is very important for Myanmar future. In my humble opinion, collective legitimacy is the function of collective idea, collective action, collective knowledge, collective wisdom, and collective bargaining power. My question to the professor is that what is the most important the components of a new education in context with U Thant, that Secretary General of United Nations. U Thant famously said, "The war will not change and find peace if there is not a new education." My question to the professor is, what do you think are the main important component of a new education in this 21st century? Thank you, sir.
Thank you for this very important question. I'm not sure I have the answer to find peace, because sadly our world is moving away from peace rather than reaching peace. But I think I do agree that if we are ever going to have peace, we need better education. We need education so that people think intelligently, and it's not only about intellectual intelligence, it's also about emotional intelligence. And if you remember, not long ago, I mentioned the word humility. It means that I don't have all the answers. It means that I know that as an individual, I'm less effective than as a team, as a group, as a nation. It means respect for different opinions, for different people, for different groups in our society. It means tolerance. It means acceptance. It means listening to others rather than imposing my views. And that's when you become an effective team, a powerful team. And today, as we are watching the Olympics, when it comes to team sports, that's how it works. You know, it's not one Messi in football who will make Argentina strong. It's if the team as a whole works together as a team. So education, and it starts very young. I think it starts in kindergarten, and that's why, you know, I insisted on this issue about learning together, because the traditional approach is the opposite of that. In some Asian countries like Japan, for example, or Singapore or South Korea, even already to get into the top kindergarten, there is fierce competition, right? So a poor 3-4-year-old is already taught about competition instead of learning about collaboration. And throughout our education career, we are judged, we are assessed, we are evaluated on the basis of our intellectual work, individual work, until our doctoral degree. And then we go out in real life, and I challenge you to show me one profession today where you work as a person. Think about the cockpit of an airplane. Think about the medical team. Think all aspects. We work in teams today. So if we don't learn to work together, not only technically, but also socio-emotionally, we are not going to produce good graduates, and then we will not have good employees, and we will not have good citizens.
Thank you, sir.
Next speaker, the Professor Owen. Yes, please. Yeah. Unmute, please. Unmute. Yeah.
Thank you very much for a very interesting lecture and very good opportunity to listen and learn about what you have pointed, digital transformation after the pandemic and green economy and green jobs due to the impact of climate change. And consequently, it is necessary to change the educational curriculums, and at the same time, there will be a new opportunity and digital green jobs, as you said. So for our country, as you know, there is ongoing severe civil war. So in fact, I simply assume that our country will be far behind compared to the other developed countries because of the different wealth and different situation. And also the opportunity are different, definitely different. So what I want to ask you is, if you have a chance, how would you like to suggest any educational policymaker or UNESCO, the UN, for any immediate actions or relevant immediate action for right to job for all its member countries equally, if you have a chance?
Yeah, that's a tough question. But what I would like to say is that countries choose where they invest. And sadly, if you spend a lot of money buying military equipment, it means that there is much less money for education and for health. And as Nelson Mandela said in South Africa, education is the best weapon to change the world. So doing whatever efforts are possible to educate, and it can be at the level of just your own children or one classroom, but that's how you can transform lives for the better. And of course, when you are in a tough context, I live in Colombia, which suffered for many years. I think they had 50 years of civil war. And even though there is no more civil war, you can still see they are behind many of the neighbor countries because they have not invested sufficiently in education. So for me, there is the key to development. And the beauty is that, we are all born equal. We are all born intelligent. In some aspects, I'm more intelligent. In other aspects, I'm less intelligent. But we all have talent. And if we don't develop this talent, we are wasting our best resources, which are not the mining products in the earth, but it's our people. Because the digital economy, it's about using our brains. Remember the people who invented Google. You can have small countries that have lots of great universities and big countries that do not. It's not your size, it's really allowing all the talents that your people have to be unleashed, to prosper, and to contribute to the transformation of society and the economy.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Townford from Singapore, do you have any question? Or Dr. Miyatana, because she is from Japan, so it is too late in Japan, I think about 12. Mr. Townford, do you have question?
Good evening. Yes, Dr. Salmi. You can call me Thomas, and then I'm from Singapore. First, I want to thank you for sharing your valuable insights on the preparing student for the post-pandemic war of the world. Yeah. Once this late Steve Jobs said, simple can be harder than the complex. You got to work hard to make your thinking clearer to get this simple. But it worth it in the end, because once you get there, you can move mountains, unquote. So in Singapore, we educated always promoting the 4 things: integrity, so honesty and ethicals and consistent in whatever you're doing, without any circumcision or no one's watching. That is very important for the students. And secondly is a teamwork. So we promote teamwork and accepting each other strengths and weaknesses, collaborate each other and respect each other view. Then second, promoting and facilitating to students to carry out some projects. And excellence in whatever you do. And most importantly, we promote care. So we always their students and create the environment for care each other. So my question here is 2 questions for you. How can the education institutions effectively adapt their curriculums and teaching methods to better prepare our students for rapidly changing the job after the COVID post-pandemic war? But that is for institution, right? And second questions for educators. What is the specific skills and competency we our educators should focus to developing the students to ensure their employability and the success in the this kind of post-pandemic economy. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. So let me try to handle the two questions. First, curriculum development. As I try to express here is that since the world is changing, we need to adapt our curriculum continuously. And for that, we need to have very close monitoring of what's happening in the labor market. In some countries, some universities, they are using data analysis, big data, looking at LinkedIn and job offers, and just to follow to map out what is happening. You need to have close linkages with industry, bring in employers onto your curriculum committees so that they can give you advice and point to you what are the directions. You can make sure that all your students do internships, that your professor, some of them do research, jointly applied research with industry, that they can be embedded into some companies to look at developments. And sometimes universities can bring new technology to the companies because small, big companies, they have their own research budget, but small and medium enterprises, they do not always have that. And so by working closely with universities, they can also learn from universities because professors will be aware of new developments in other parts of the world. But it's so important to do this constant curriculum development and adaptation. Now, in terms of competency of educators, let me share an anecdote because it has something to do with Singapore. So a friend of mine used to teach from the US to teach at a US university, and in 2011, I believe, he was recruited by NUS, National University of Singapore. To his surprise, when he arrived there, he was told he had to take a compulsory training to be able to teach online, even though NUS back then didn't teach online. But remember in 2006-07, there was the SARS epidemic.
Yes.
And even though there were very few cases in Singapore, the university did risk analysis and they said, what if one day we had to stop teaching on campus? And so systematically, all the students, all the professors had to be trained. And in many universities, all the students have to have a laptop and a good internet connection. So that's why when the COVID came, I could witness big gaps and inequalities all over the world, within countries, across universities, between students, post-students, rich students, in terms of preparedness vis-a-vis something bad, like a health crisis, like the pandemic. So it's important to create an environment where professors there will be incentives, there will be rewards to be good professors and to be innovative professors. In many universities, sadly, all the incentives are for research because of publications, because of the rankings, etc. And not many universities have the wisdom of rewarding also teaching excellence. And providing, you should have a teaching and learning services department, and giving time to professors who want to learn new techniques, who want to learn how to improve their curriculum, who want to learn, I want to do flips classroom, but I don't know how to do it. So, and again, I use the word humility. Accept that even though I'm a famous professor, I've published a lot, I can still learn to improve my teaching habits. And so it's having the right incentives, the reward for when you have criteria for promotion, and creating an environment where, as a professor, I can ask my colleague to come and observe on my class and make some suggestions. And I will not be ashamed about it. If she or he tells me, this thing you did, maybe you could do it differently, because I used to have, when we had the screen savers, a screen, remember, on I would have one that says learning never ends, right? And that's why I'm 72 years, I'm retired long time ago, but I'm still working hard, not because I need the money, but because I am passionate about it.
Okay.
So you want your professors to be passionate and to be innovative and to learn about new things. And so you need to create the environment for that.
Great. Okay.
Thank you, Prof. Salmi. Yeah. Have a nice evening.
Dr. Miyazana, do you have any question? She is from Japan. She is joining from Japan. Please, yes. And after that, Dr. Wang or anyway.
Do you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Do you
Yes.
hear me? Dr. Salmi, it's so good to see you again. I don't know whether you might not remember me. Many years back, I introduced myself to you in Sri Lanka. We had one education conference, and I came to you and I introduced myself as I'm from Myanmar. Now, after the retirement, now I'm working in Japan since 2021. So it's already midnight in Japan, but when Dr. Mujue said that this time the speaker is Dr. Jamil Salmi, so I told him that I must attend.
Okay.
It's very kind of you.
Thank you so much for your lectures are always serious and thought-provoking. And I feel that we need patience, commitment, and resources to face the current and future challenges, especially in the education. And I could not agree with you more that the graduates should have the generic competency, and also they should have knowledge and skills, not only in the subjects they specialize, but also in the subjects as diverse as possible to be able to survive in this world. And it's not really a question, but there are you left me with some thoughts. I was just wondering, these are the things that I just asked myself. And one thing is that I am just wondering whether how quick the universities are in transforming themselves to adapt to the current situation. Some might be quick and some universities might be late, but that's what I was thinking, what the situation is and how many universities are quick in transforming themselves to face the current challenges. And also there might be some professionals or the universities professors or lecturers who has the vision and who knows that what is coming in the future. So they might propose some programs in the university to introduce there, but I don't know whether there are hurdles or difficulties in passing it, or how does it go in the university? I do not know, but I was just thinking, whether how readily the universities could accept such proposal to make changes, and also, and we need not such individuals, one or two. If you want to make a changes in the university, there might be a horde of such persons who has such willingness to change and to overcome the current challenges. And that is another thing I was thinking. And you talk about the Oling College, Oling College of Engineering, and they seems to be the undergraduate students. But since it does not have the kind of academic departments, and the students design the program themselves, so I was just wondering whether how the assessment was made and whether did you ask them what was the criteria for pass and fail and such criteria, because they do not have the proper curriculum also. So I was just wondering how was the procedures there when they make a criteria for pass, fail, and graduation. That's just what I was wondering. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your thoughts and for your kind words. And it's a pleasure to see you again after that was the Inquiry Conference, right, in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, Sri Lanka. And I was then the member of the Quality Assurance Commission, and we went there with the education group. It was nice.
Yeah, no, So let me start with Olin.
Yeah.
They have a very rigorous assessment, but they assess the capacity of the teams to resolve problems, to analyze it, and then to find the right answer. And also they have one of the challenges for them was to analyze the individual contribution within the team, because it's not easy to work as a team. Sounds good. And not everyone pulls his or her weight. So you needed to have also a system where, you are all my team colleagues, but I have to be objective in saying, this one showed leadership, this one was a bit lazy, so combining that is a big challenge. But many of the projects are questions asked by enterprises. So these are real life projects. And so the enterprise will also contribute to saying their solution is fantastic or their solution is not so. You may remember I mentioned that one of the leg of the triangle is entrepreneurship. About 1/3 of all in students, by the time they graduate at the end of the 4-year undergraduate program, have already created their own company. And their reputation of the graduate journey is so good that big enterprise companies like Microsoft or Google, they come to Olin at the end of the year and they say, we want to take 25 of your graduates. They don't interview them. They just, they put a board, please, up to 25 people, they take them without checking because they know they are Olin graduates. So there is a mark of quality. The other thing I wanted to say, listening to your thoughts, was, remember during the pandemic, I don't know whether it was the experience also in Myanmar, but I've seen it in many universities in the world, is that, universities are very segmented. You have silos. Faculties are a world in their own. They don't talk to the next faculty. Young professors do not talk to older professor and vice versa. We respect the old professor. When the pandemic starts, nobody knows, most of the people didn't know how to teach online, right? So all of a sudden, we see young and older people talking to each other, trying to learn together. Right. People from chemistry talking to people from history. Yes. When you hear that, oh, this one had experience. And there was much more sharing of experience, much more learning from each other, much more learning together. And that was because of the crisis, because of the necessity. We have to create a climate within our institutions that allow for this kind of flexibility. And then a comment on one of your first thoughts about the fact that not all universities adapt quickly. If you allow me to talk again about my son, Karim. After a few years working in a company without a degree, he realized, and actually he's been changing companies, getting a higher salary each time. But at one point he said, Dad, I'm going to go to school now to get my degree, because I realized that if I want to move ahead within companies, especially big companies, I need the piece of paper. So he didn't go to a traditional university. He went to University of Maryland, which is a comprehensive traditional university, but it has a huge online distance program. They have about, I think it's a global learning something. about 150,000 students. And they recognized a few of the credits from the university which he failed. They recognized a lot of his professional experience. And so to get his bachelor's degree, instead of doing a 4-year programs, he did it in less than 2 years, working in parallel because he was still working, but doing taking classes, doing his assignments during the weekend. And foolishly, to tease him, when he announced that he was going to study for a degree, I said, well, I'm so happy. I challenge you, if you actually manage it, when you finish your degree, I will buy you a new car. And less than 2 years later, he comes back to me and says, Dad, next month I'm graduating. I said, oh, congratulations, I'm very proud of you. He said, Dad, aren't you forgetting something? I played dumb, No, well, oh, you remember the car, the car. And then I asked him, did we agree on the scale of the car? Maybe it's I have one on my desk. Maybe it's a small car like this. He said, Dad, don't play games with me. Be serious. You promised something, you have to comply. But then his brother and his sister, who had been excellent students, they complained to me. They said, when we graduated, we didn't get a car. He was the bad student and now he's being rewarded. That's not fair. So that's partly why I still have to work.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
But the main point is about having programs that are relevant to people, not only to the traditional young students, but people who work and need to adjust their learning to upgrade, to get an additional degree, etc. So those innovative universities that have that in place will get many more students than the traditional universities.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Okay. And Dr. Wang from ONEBC, our member, do you have Mr. Joe? He is yes, Dr. Wang, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Sai.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
He is our
Thank you, Dr. Salmi, and nice to see you again. Your presentation is quite comprehensive.
We lost you. You are on mute.
Unmute, please. Dr. Wang, unmute, please. Yes.
Your presentation is quite comprehensive and also highly thought-provoking for us. And I like the analogy you used. Everybody has to run. I totally agree. But at the same time, I was also wondering, because to be able to run, you need energy. You need a kind of a basic ingredients, like how you know how to run, and you have quite enough of energy to be able to run. But the context for different institutions are different. So some institutions, they are ready to run, but some will be having many challenges to be able to run. So I was just wondering the gap between different institutions will have some effect on their ability to actually transform themselves. When we were initiating our reforms in around 10 years back, one of the consultants, the international consultants, they have suggested, because we are behind many of our neighboring countries in terms of our situation of the education, then some of the people are a bit concerned about, because today's world is highly competitive, as you said. So in order to be able to compete with the institutions around the region, then you have to try to be able to catch up them first. Then the consultant was suggesting to leapfrog. That is the term he used. If we are able to leapfrog, then we will be able to catch up some of the institutions around the region within a few years. But again, the leapfrogging is easier said than done. So I was just kind of, while I was listening to your presentation, which is quite comprehensive, you start with the changing nature of the job and their linkages with the higher education. Then you talk about curriculum, pedagogy, assessment, and a few innovations by different higher education institutions. It appeared to be quite comprehensive, but at the same time, it's a bit overwhelming for us where to start, where to begin. So I was kind of just wondering whether you can give some of the basic steps that we can take to be able to catch up with our competing institutions around the region. So if you can give us some advice where and how to start the reform process. Thank you.
Okay.
Once upon a time, I came across a real life situation that looks like a lab experiment. When the British colonial powers established the first modern university in Malaysia, for some reasons which I don't know, they set up 2 campuses, one in Kuala Lumpur and one in a small village in the south called Singapore. These were 2 branches of the same university, University of Malaya. When Malaysia became independent, they still kept the 2 campuses. And then in 1965, so if I remember correctly, Malaysia became independent in 62, and in 65, Singapore became independent as a city-state, right? So at that moment, the 2 campuses of the same university had to go their separate way. Today, the one which was in Kuala Lumpur is Malaysia's flagship university, University of Malaya. It's a good, very good university. The one in Singapore became National University of Singapore. It's an even better university, if we believe the ranking. So this was very useful to start thinking, why is NUS doing better than University of Malaya? Right? And my conclusion was that the big difference was governance. A lot of flexibility in the case of Singapore. I don't know if our colleague who lives in Singapore is still with us, but
Yes.
my experience, I've never seen a country where public institutions work better than the private sector.
Right. Right.
The opposite of everywhere else.
Yes. Yes. I understand.
So I believe that governance, leadership, and institutional culture
Yes.
make a difference.
Right.
Singapore is very international. They have brought back talent. They've brought talent from everywhere. Until recently, Malaysian universities were very inward-looking. Very few foreign students, almost no foreign professors.
Right.
That's also part of the institutional culture.
Yeah.
Now, resources matter. Of course, poor countries have challenges that rich countries do not have. Starting with the digital infrastructure. If we are going to take advantage of all the internet resources, like free open education resources, there is a lab at the University of Colorado. There is software that allows you to, virtual lab in chemistry, in physics, in biology, etc. It's available free of charge to anyone, and it's available in many languages. But if you don't have a good internet connection, you cannot use it, right? During the pandemic, most of the African universities were not able to shift to online teaching and learning because they didn't have electricity at some time. They didn't have a good internet connection. Most of the students didn't have a laptop or a tablet or even a cellular phone. Or if they have a cellular phone, they didn't have the money to buy an internet subscription. So the basics, you need basic resource, the energy that you need to run, that's for true. But beyond that, I've seen across countries differences. If you take, a long picture, Singapore has done better than Malaysia. Thailand was way ahead, but today Vietnam is catching up, whereas Cambodia has not progressed as much. So it has to do with leadership, governance, more than resources. I've seen the transformation in China. We may say what we want about the political system and the lack of freedom, but one fact is that they have built a tremendous education system. The first year the Shanghai ranking was published, there was not one university in the top 100. Today, they have 10 universities. It's not because the ranking is done in Shanghai.
Right.
It's because they have built up their research capacity with a long-term vision. They have invested, they have sent people to get degrees in the best universities all over the world. They have come back. They are hiring now quite a growing proportion of foreign academics. So policy, leadership, vision make a difference. And within countries,
Yes.
when you have the same constraints, I'm sure that Myanmar is in a difficult situation now. Most universities are very poor. But I'm sure that if I were to visit again universities today, as I did in the past, I would find some under the same circumstances that are doing significantly better than others. And that will not be because they won the lottery, but it's because they have a leadership team, they have some ideas, they are offering something that other universities are not doing. So it's it's not easy, it's very difficult, but it is possible.
Yeah.
And we have no other choice.
Right.
You are born Myanmar from Myanmar, or I was born in Morocco.
Right.
We would maybe want to be born in Switzerland. We would not have money problem, right? But that's the way we are, and we have to do what we can with our environment. And that's where the factors I mentioned make a difference.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, good. Great. Yeah. And I think we have any other people, Professor Mr. Joe Tonsei, he is from India, is now in Yangon. What about ICT people, Dr. Nying A or Dr. Mr. Teng Liao or Wu Chuamo? We have the potential. Okay,
Can I speak?
Joe, please.
Thank you so much, Professor Salmi. I must first of all thank Dr. Nyuche for inviting you to give this lecture.
Yes.
It's one of the most wonderful lectures I've heard for a very, very long time. And I must say that I'm not complete. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to listen to your recorded version of today's lecture and go through your PowerPoints again so that I can absorb more and more. And I was just wishing that your lecture wouldn't end. It was so good. But now, with your varied experience and with an experience of Myanmar as well, you would know that Myanmar education is highly in the government sector. It's controlled by the government sector. So the universities do not have the leeway to decide and adapt or do things as they wish. Everything is handled and controlled by the government. So much of the insights that you have thrown up today in the post-pandemic world of green economy, blue economy, digital economy, etc., they are so enlightening and they are to be absorbed into this system. But the issue here now is that none of the universities have the leeway to decide on their own. The policy has to be decided from the top-down approach. So it is going to take time to bring about many changes here. But I wish the changes would come sooner than later, because our universities have to change. From my observation, what I find is that the universities and the industry have very poor linkages in this country. So there is absolutely very little linkage between university and the industries. So as a result, there is no two-way communication. So the universities operate in their own silo, and the industries expect the graduates to come out and contribute, but they are not contributing. Well, of course, these things will take time to change. But what is most worrisome today, right now, from what I see, is brain drain. Now, brain drain is what is affecting this country a lot, and I really don't know how you view the brain drain as such.
Thank you for your very nice comments and these two questions. First, yes, public universities in many countries do not enjoy the institutional autonomy that is needed to be a successful university.
Right.
And that's a national problem that needs to be addressed. And believe me, it's not only in poor countries. I've been an advisor to some universities in France recently, and they have a lot of course, they are much richer, but still, they have problem because they are not flexible, they are very rigid, and they suffer from a little bit of brain drain, not to the extent that a country like yours is suffering, but still, some of their best professors are in the US, are in Asia. So it's still a problem. And you see it in Europe, the southern European universities from Greece to Portugal, Spain, less Portugal. Portugal has made some interesting reforms, but Greece, France, Germany, and Spain and Italy, they are very traditional, public, because most of them are public universities. They are very rigid and very limited. But this being said, again, I will make the same argument that within one country, I remember in, I think, 1998, China decided that they would reduce the public budget to public universities and that they had to do some fundraising, have students pay fees. And I traveled throughout China. I was on a World Bank mission. We were preparing a project. And it was fascinating how within the same country, the same policies, you would get to a university and the mood was so negative, somber. We cannot do this. We don't have the resource. We cannot. And then you would go to another city, another university, and they would say, oh, we are doing this. We have a company coming on the campus. We are. So again, same thing, leadership and vision and innovation and finding ways. Because I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that you are prohibited from having linkages with industry. And some professors, even within the same university, you will have some professors who talk to industry and others who are just happy doing their theoretical courses. So yes, the conditions, the national conditions may be very constraining, and I don't want to minimize them, but we cannot give up hope, right? So we can see which opening we have, what small margin of maneuver we can use to do something different, to do something better. So that's for the first part about institutional autonomy and lack of thereof. Brain drain, that's terrible, you know. And so what is a loss for Myanmar is going to be a gain for Singapore or for India or for Japan, or you know, there is no. It's very bad. Now, if you have a policy and incentives to bring back people from the diaspora, then you can benefit. Then it becomes brain circulation, not brain drain. But yes, if you train people, if your best people leave the country, then the country gets poorer. And that's the drama in sub-Saharan Africa and in many other countries in the world. You know,
Thank
Colombia,
you.
where I live, has 2 million refugees from Venezuela because of the dictatorship there. And out of these people, the top people from the oil industry, for example, they come to Colombia, and Colombia can benefit from their talent, from their experience, from their knowledge. So yeah, it's a big issue, and there is no easy answer.
Thank you.
Mr. Chomo, yes, please.
Thank you, Professor. It was very nice. I learned a lot from you, your presentation skill, your communication skill. Very informative, very impressive topic and discussions. I don't want to disturb in the earlier time. I want to provide some space for discussions of other people, because it's very good discussion. Now I just want to discuss about the last question that you raised. What is your vision? So in last 4 or 5 years, there was a blog post. It says about the data science is a sexiest job in the 21st century. Then in the last 2 or 3 years, it changed from data science to ChatGPT and then generative AI. And so technology is also changing very fast. So in that case, in my mind, I have a question. What is your expectation of the data science job market in the future? How long it will last? Because I am now transferring my knowledge to the young people. So what do you think about this opinion? Thank you.
Oh, I wouldn't be worried about data science and big data, because it's more and more about information. You know, and generative AI is using information that is available on the internet, right? And now they're switching. They're also going to get information that is available in newspapers and other publications. So it's all about information and data analysis. So I would not be worried about the future, but it's maybe different from what is being taught today. You know, it's evolving very rapidly. And these are some of the disciplines where what first-year students learn may be obsolete before they graduate. So that's why, again, I make the same pitch about lifelong learning. It's more important to give your students the capacity to continue learning on their own after they leave the university, because it's going to change.
Right.
It's, you know, I see it's in the content of my presentations like today. If I go back to a similar presentation 4 years ago, today it's very different, because the world has changed. I mean, already with COVID, it's totally new. With ChatGPT, that's opening new avenues, and that's why I love my work, because every day there is something new. And my wife keeps asking me, when are you going to retire for good? And I tell her, the day I stop learning, I will know that If I'm just recycling the same
Right.
thing, that's it. And so we have, and that's the beauty of higher education. It's changing so much. Green economy, digital economy, blue economy. So it's thinking, fake news and the core values do not change. University is about knowledge. It's about seeking the truth. It's about offering equal opportunities. It's about ethical behaviors. So this has not changed. Perhaps what is changing is the need to contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals, to the SDGs, which universities were not necessarily doing well. But the core values are the same. It's just the way you do research, you teach, you learn around these core values has changed, is changing. And that's where you need to adapt.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we have run out of time. Anyway, one or two questions. I mean, we have ICT people who taking out. Dr. Nyi, you have anything? Siaji Ukimaucho, you are joining from US. Okay, Dr. Nyi, would you like to raise a question, please? Yes.
The discussion is already perfect as it is, and there is no need for me to ask anything. By the way, Dr. Jamil Salmi, I am very impressed on your opinion on advanced technology such as generic AI. Thank you for your discussion.
Okay, that's good. They are ICT expert. Taking out, Yomla. Say you come out, please. You are joining
Yes,
from US, I think.
I'm late coming, joining the meeting.
Yes,
Therefore,
please.
I want to apologize for my late coming and joining the meeting. But I have very thankful to the professor because we have many knowledge in our mind. That is for our country very precious knowledge for the educationists. Thank you so much. Only one. This was one comment.
Okay,
Thank you.
Yeah, I think there is one question from chat box, Mr. Linted. May I know more detailed information of Korean Credit Bank 610? Professor Jamil, website link. Do you have any answer for his question?
Yeah, I
Korean
could share
Credit
some
Bank.
documentation. I can share my email address in the chat. Let me do that right. So wait.
Okay, it's
This
all
is
right. Maybe I can.
no, it's okay. I can put it right now.
Yeah. We will circulate Professor Jamil's PowerPoint to everybody, okay? Because we received this afternoon, okay? So
Yeah, I don't know whether they give, it's they look at qualifications from outside. I think there must be a different department within the ministry that would give equivalences for degrees from Myanmar. But actually, if you go to my website, which is www.tertiaryeducation.org, you will find many of my publications, which you can download free of charge, of course.
Right.
But if there is any other things, feel free to write to me, and if I have the information, I will share it with you, of course.
So does anybody, the last question, do you have any?
Hello?
Yes,
please. Hello, thanks for the sharing the fruitful knowledge, the impressive knowledge of the your post pandemic situation and how we make in future. So now you are mentioning about the 21st century scale for the future for work and also for education. And also you give the example like the digital education transformation and also the education technology using in education as well. So do you think Myanmar also need this kind of 21st century scale or not? Because another thing is also our education institution also can support this kind of scale or not. If we need, if we want to get or something like that, how we should to get or how we should start? Like this kind of questions is that we are also mentioning about how we should start or something like that. So thanks for your presentation.
think,
Thanks for your
yeah, I think you can, if you can decide that you don't care about the internet and you will,
Right.
You don't want to join the linked countries, universities, networks, or you can see that as an opportunity to get access to knowledge, to get to know other people with whom you can collaborate, to get information from the research findings. Doesn't mean that, the problems that Myanmar has are Myanmar's problems. They are specific. The way climate change is happening in Myanmar will be very different from the way it's happening in Mali or Chad in the Sahel region of the sub-Saharan Africa. But so you will use the same tools, physics, chemistry, environmental sciences, to resolve different problems. Your problems and your way also. There is not one solution. But I believe, using science is important. I believe in science. It will not give us all the solution. It's not only basic science or fundamental sciences, it's also social sciences and humanities. But using knowledge, I think that any country should have. And plus, recovering traditional knowledge, for example, traditional medicine, agriculture. I mentioned I was in Spain and they have big water problem, too much dry weather, droughts. And so you may know from the history that my ancestors from the Arabs came to Spain and occupied Spain for a few centuries, and they brought scientific advances, and in architecture, but also in irrigation schemes, all traditional irrigation schemes, which are not used anymore because these are old technologies. But now some people in Spain think that they should revive these technologies because they are more adapted to dry seasons and dry climates than to what they were 30, 50 years ago. So, it's knowledge in general, but some of it may be very advanced, new technology, and some may be very old, and you may want to merge these two types of knowledge.
Thank you. I think we have already 10 our 17 minutes. So anyway, before we are closing, I have to announce the next week program. Professor Jamil, do you have any wrap up or final words for us?
I want to thank you for the invitation. And
Yes.
as you know, it's very difficult to give a speech online because you cannot see the faces and the reactions of the participants. Maybe they all fell asleep, or maybe they were bored and they were chatting, doing other things while I was speaking. But from the richness and the insightful questions that you asked and the comments you made, I feel really honored to have had such a good audience, and that hopefully it was useful. And so for me, it's meaningful because of all the good questions you shared with us.
Okay, thank you very much. I think on behalf of our local NGO, Golden Plain, as well as from the whole Myanmar people, the scientists who discussed there, we are very, very grateful for Professor Jamil, Salmi, because we haven't seen you face to face. I hope we will be able to see you. You are 72, I'm now 66, but I hope we'll be able to work. Now, I've been running this type of the knowledge sharing program for, I think this is 106th time, already nearly 3 years, every Saturday night. So I'm very happy because this is my passion. I just want to get the knowledge to everybody. I'm coming from agriculture, but for me, it's like you said, comprehensive approach. I mean, multidisciplinary approach. Not only agriculture cannot do only one thing. So agriculture, forestry, engineering, animal component, medicine, engineering, computer science, something like that. That will combine together. That's why I'm setting up that kind of the platform. So I'm very, very thankful to Dr. Salmi. I hope we will see you again. And I'm very thankful to the people who discuss and who, appears not only that in Zoom, but also from the Facebooks. We are going to also circulate. It is in YouTube. So I'm also grateful to my Korean Blame people, Dr. Dante, Dr. Meu Kai, something like the Xuezhen Pyo All, Andrew, who supported since 7:30 p.m. So thank you. And next week, we will
Looks like we lost Professor Mew. Challenge of connections.
It seems we lost
I will-
connection. So anyway,
so I will
I
say
might,
goodbye to everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much,
Bye-bye,
Dr.
take care.
Salmi. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye.